Hello, YouTubers. Uh, Joe here again. Um, excuse me, cold. I tell you, it's rough. Just debating on making this evening or not, but um, the last video we left off, uh, food for thought was asking the question, um, you know, why doesn't why why don't people stop? They have been making us slaves for years, and no one ever stopped to ask them on it. Now, we left the last video with that question, and I was just wondering if maybe any of you been thinking about it. Um, why do they make us slaves? You know, um, my only conclusion is they, the answer, in my opinion, is they make us slaves because they need us to make money valuable. The fact that you want money and somebody else wants money to pay off so-called debt gives money value. So that's why they need us. That's why they make us slaves. But starting on where we left off, um, was about uh, a child, you, me, and everybody else being connected to a birth certificate. So here we go. The child itself, when born, is the asset of the trust established by the birth certificate, and the social security number is numbering or registration for command. The trust allowing for those assets of those trusts to be tracked, thus making, however, gets a birth certificate owned by the state. So basically what that there paragraph stating is that, I'll read it one more time. The child itself, when born, is the asset of the trust established by the birth certificate, and the social security number is the numbering or registration of the trust, allowing for the assets of the trust to be tracked, thus making whomever gets a birth certificate owned by the state. Now, having said that twice, basically, in a nutshell, the birth certificate is a trust created when you're born, and the social security number that they assign to you is nothing more than a tracking number to keep track of your birth certificate and you, which are owned by the state. Didn't that piss you off? Didn't that just fucking piss you off? You're owned by the state. Which basically makes everyone who has a birth certificate, they're considered assets of the bankrupt United States of America, which makes them designed or designated by the government as human resources. Now that's the technical term. I still like financial livestock better, but that's just me. Again, ask yourself, why do you think when you call to see if a company's hiring, you have to go through a division known as human resources? That's no matter what job you get, they're going to send you through human resources, and they can't rightly just come out and say, yeah, go check with the financial livestock division. So they got to come up with a clever name for it, which they come up with human resources. Now, today, in this day and age, the modern day, we are defined as human resources believed to be owned by the government. I hope I'm teaching something here, because this is not right at all. There's nothing about this fraudulent conversion of birth certificates that's not foul. You know, it's just freaking foul. And I believe the only reason why it happens is because out of our ignorance, nobody teaches us the truth. So here I am again talking to my phone, um, you know, trying to reach you guys, whoever may be listening. Hopefully, more and more of you start to listen and subscribe. And um, it's not about the subscriptions to me. It's about getting the information out there. You know, the government now wants U.S. individuals to be tagged and tracked. Farmers tag and track their livestock. Did you know that? Oh yeah. Yep. Tag and track their livestock. Our government tag and tracks us for because we're their slaves. Now, government mandated or legislated national ID is unconstitutional in any way you look at it. When the government mandates you to get an ID, whether it be a driver's license or a state ID or whatever that may be, it is in fact unconstitutional. Now, any way you look at it, because everything they've done to lead up to that point has been fraudulent. So keep that in mind. Federal jurisdiction to legislate for the several states does not exist. Let me say it again. There's not a federal jurisdiction to legislate for the several states that does not exist. Note, they have no legislation for ordering you to have an identification card, health card, or so forth. But they know the people, you and I, are ignorant to the law. Now, yeah, we're ignorant to the law because, you know, there's so many of them, and they make it so boring to even look at a law, let alone find its meaning, you know. Um, Me, I'm not ignorant no more. And again, I say ignorance isn't stupid. Ignorance is to ignore. You're ignoring it. You just, don't have the time or don't want to or it's boring or whatever. The fact is, you're not stupid. You just are ignoring the fact that, and they take advantage of that. They expect you to be ignorant of it. You know, did you know that the bar that our attorneys in this country take in order to practice law in our country, the bar stands for British um, Registry and Regency. I mean, basically, it's still the law under the Queen. But there's a lot of people who don't know that they ain't in law. British Registry Regency is what the bar stands for. Therefore, by ignorance of the people, the government is allowed to freely, at will, keep coming up with forms of taxation against the American people. At will. Have you ever noticed that there's a new law going out all the time? Basically, it's so bad that every red-blooded American who steps out his door in the morning, or her door, throughout the course of that day, they're a criminal because they've broken at least 6 or 7 laws, you know? And it's impossible not to. They make so many fucking laws that it's impossible not to break one. It's bullshit. Anyway, back to the birth certificate itself proves that you and I are national property of the international bank, not just in the United States, but internationally, the international banks. The birth certificate thus becomes a form of theft. Did you hear that? Since our birth certificates prove that we are national property of international banks, that proves that that and hence makes the birth certificate becomes a form of theft. Fraudulent. Again, fraudulent. I haven't told you anything in the last video that wasn't fraudulent. Now, the theft of a child's true identity is as a free child of God to servant of the state. Now, basically, the theft of the birth certificate is theft of your identity. Now, if we steal somebody's identity, isn't that a crime? If I was to steal the identity of my buddy sitting beside me here and get caught doing that, I would go to prison for identity theft. But yet you have international banks that can steal your child's identity, and it's just banking to them. I find that to be I can't even come up with a word for it without sounding like a hillbilly. Nothing against hillbillies, but I got a vocabulary and there's many words that I could spit out right now. By affixing a national seal of approval to a child, the state denies the freedom, rights, and dignity that God has ordained in the scriptures. You don't need proof that you were born or breathing. Your breathing is proof enough for these hypocrites. Yeah, well, they're hypocrites, all right, because they'll arrest us for identity theft, but they'll steal yours in a fucking minute. Oh, boy, it pisses me off. By requiring a license, the state is claiming complete control and ownership over your liberty and property. Now, what that's saying is when you get a license, you're signing into contract, and in fact, basically giving away your liberty and the ownership of your liberty and property. But they don't tell you that. Why would they? I mean, shit. If I was getting away with something like that, which my moral compass wouldn't let me, but if I was, I wouldn't tell anybody either. You know? Christ's assembly does not exist on paper, but in the hearts of men, and is expressed in their outward acts. Like I say in some, a lot of my videos, a kind act, forget about, money, and do something nice for somebody else. That's what that means. It, expressed in the outward acts. Because there's no breath of life from God in such pieces of paper. We should not look to them for any authority for doing anything. Each of us is a sovereign, and each one of us was given unalienable rights by God. We do not need to have our birth registered. And again, I'll say, why we need proof? Our parents know we're born. Our families know we're born. The proof is all about the identity theft. Um, the legality differences. First, there's a vast difference between a state-issued birth certificate of birth, and a certified copy of a live birth. A certificate is used today is not lawfully the same as a certified copy. A birth certificate is issued by the state to conform with federal requirements under the perpetrated necessity of vital statistics. Now, if you've gotten a birth certificate, everybody who has ever gotten a certified copy of the birth certificate knows who vital statistics are. Now, I'm just going to use, it don't matter what state, but state of Ohio, I'll just use my state. State of Ohio Department of Health Office of Vital Statistics issues these statutory certificates. The names are spelled all in capital letters and conform to federal law legislations. Now, prior to the 1860s, the only certification of birth came from the church, not from the state or government. I'm going to read this next paragraph real quick. I'm going to cut this one short. The church required 2 Christian witnesses to attest to, by their signatures and seals, the birth, be it a live birth or stillborn birth. The church viewed that, living or dead, the birth was to be attested to under affirmation before God. Yeah, think about that for a minute. To the church, it didn't matter if it was a live birth or a stillborn birth. They was looked upon as the same. Now, why wouldn't the government? I'll tell you why. Because a stillborn is dead and therefore not able to be an asset to the state to work off that international debt. Anyway, I'll be back soon and give you some definitions and how they changed between 1828 and 1998. But anyway, as always, peace out.